started. In today's session, we're pleased to welcome again for the second week in a row several members of Mural's product design team. Hailey, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's on the docs for today's session?
So yeah, we're excited to have our product team here to talk a little bit more and kind of expand beyond what we did last week. And during our last session, we were focusing on creating prototypes for a new mural feature, which is search and filter. Search and filter within a canvas. And so we'll dive a little bit more into what that looks like. But today we want to follow up with that and focus on a design critique. And we'll dive more into what a design critique method is and its value. But ultimately, the goal of this session here, today's purpose, is to really gather feedback on the prototype that we're going to be sharing today in this session. And it's specifically focused on that filter feature. And so one of our, Sebastian on the product team, is going to be sharing that prototype, and the rest of the team, and even you who is with us today, you can share some feedback so our team can continue building a better product.
Sounds good. So I wanted to kick off using a tool we sometimes throw into our webinars called Mentimeter, and invite all of those of you on the call, open up another browser tab and go to this URL, www.menti.com, and punch in the code 342955. And what you'll see is a question. It says, what comes to mind when you hear the word critique? And you'll have an interface. So I just want to cue that up, and I'm going to share the word cloud that you generate as we go. So while you're answering that question, I want to talk a little bit about design critique. Critique often has a negative connotation because most of the way we use it, at least in English language, is meant to be critical, right? So when someone hears the word critique, they often think that it's only pointing out the negative. But if it's done right, the design critique is one of the most valuable tools that you can employ to alter the culture within your company. So if you are struggling to employ agile or design thinking, or have really a lean approach to how you're doing stuff, critique is often overlooked, but it's a critical component in the way conversations happen. Because in any of these processes, you're trying to formulate a theory, you're trying to gather information to use the research, and you're trying to distill that into some type of artifact that you can share with people and get feedback. The whole purpose of building a journey map, or building a prototype, or building a concept poster or anything, is to present it and then get feedback. And so because most company cultures don't have a strong critique culture, there isn't an understanding of the benefits or how to run it. It's often just kind of glossed over, and maybe the feedback is kind of piecemeal and not as dynamic and healthy. I'm going to take a little screen capture here so we can see some of the words that you're generating in this word cloud, and I'll drop it right in here to Mural. So this is what comes to mind when most people are hearing the word critique. Now it's a good indication that feedback in general is the leading word, and in general this seems to be like a really healthy population. That's great. So maybe some of the things that we'll show you today, or some of the things you observe today, will build on positive skills you have. Judgment is sometimes part of it, and so we'll move into the process of the methodology we're going to use to conduct our critique, and see how we can get the most out of any opportunity we have to get feedback. Now, you see in this image, this is a great image. Luma uses this image all the time. The thing I like about it is that their images model what good looks like. So some of the things in this image that maybe are not totally obvious is someone's taking notes, right? So it's not just the point of verbalizing all this stuff. There's some way to capture the feedback. In Mural, we can dispense with the handwritten notes, and the feedback can go directly into the Mural, which is great. The person standing up is a person who's representing the work. And if you notice, this person is actually highlighting where they would like feedback. So oftentimes critique as well often misses the mark when people try and practice it, because they present an idea that's pretty big, and then the critique is aimed at every aspect of this, where the person may benefit just from focusing and saying, here's the overall flow. The moment that we're really wanting to focus on is this interaction right here. So sometimes if you have lots of different stakeholders in the room, sometimes you present ideas and you've got someone from brand, and they're looking and they're saying, that's not the right background color of gray. That's not the latest logo. And they're getting hung up on things that may be true, but it's not where you need feedback. So you really need to facilitate your own critique and thank people for their feedback, but keep directing the feedback specifically at the areas where you want it. Just make the best use of the time. The benefits of this, once you get people used to soliciting and giving feedback, and once you can get some of the alignment where people aren't necessarily critiquing the person, but they're staying at a level where we're critiquing the idea, and everyone gets on board with acknowledging that the feedback we give is to improve the idea, even if some of the feedback is really hard to hear. Even if the feedback is, I don't think we should proceed with this at all, it's important to hear that and then inquire and unpack those comments and make sure there's alignment in everyone's on. All right, so Hailey, you have a cool little warm-up for us to try, correct?
I do, yeah. So for our team here, our product team, I want to make sure that you guys are kind of getting in the mindset and of the design critique and getting ready and get some creative juices flowing. So I'm going to, guys, come down here to this warm-up section. I'd like to summon everybody just so you're seeing what I'm seeing on the screen. Hello, everyone. And we're going to do a quick warm-up called What Flavor Is. And it's inspired by a really fascinating phenomenon where some people can actually taste a word. When they hear a certain word, a flavor comes in their mouth and they can kind of taste it, and it brings that sensation. Kind of weird, but also kind of awesome. So I'm going to give you guys 3 questions, and I'll add them on the canvas as we go. And what I'd like you to do is to use different icons or images or sticky notes to respond to the question I add. And I'll give you about 1 minute to do that. Sound good? Any
Sounds
questions?
great.
All right, nods all around. Looks good. All right, first question is, what word would taste like alfajores? And for those of you who are not familiar with Argentine cuisine, it is a really tasty tea. I'll add a picture of it in here. So like shortbread cookies, they usually have dulce de leche or some other delicious kind of filling in there. Ooh, I love this. So Celeste, why Havana?
Because it's the main brand for Argentinian alfajores, and they are perfect.
That sounds good. Sounds really, really good. Okay, comfortable snap. Oh, I love that one. Just like the sound it makes when you bite into it. Smooth reward. Awesome. Love that one. Now they're all hungry.
So next time, everyone gets these in the mail or FedEx for the call.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Just for studying to prepare.
That's right, just for scientific research.
All right. Next question is, what flavor best represents your attitude towards life? And those of you joining us in the audience, you can also type in your responses in the chat. And we can have Augustine and Jenna add those in as well.
So while the team's responding, I'll point out, warm-up exercises are something that we employ frequently. Sometimes they're very brief, sometimes they're a little bit elongated. But they're an opportunity with a new team to get to know each other. But with existing teams, it's an opportunity for you to focus people's attention and kind of expand and get some lateral thinking going on. So an exercise like this really, even if it's not directly related to what we're doing, it's getting your brain thinking in new ways, bringing in images, using words, using icons, all of that together is a way to kind of express yourself in a digital way in a very quick way as well.
All right, so I think, Flor, you added the ginger, fresh ginger, right? Why fresh ginger?
Ginger and sweets.
Ooh, ginger and sweets. Okay, so not like, because sometimes ginger can be really strong, really powerful, but yours is a little bit more like sweet ginger in a way, right?
Yes, it's like an interesting flavor that has like lots of labels. I don't know, layers, not labels.
Label, yeah, like very complex.
Yes.
All right, we have leather, sweet and warm. Sharon said chocolate. Who put the hot chili pepper in here?
So I can right click on that and see.
I did it. Sorry, I was muted and you couldn't hear me. But I searched the word spicy and I love that image, so I put it in there. That's it. It doesn't have much meaning.
No, I like it.
There you go. Oh, just a second, Hailey. I'd love right click so people can see how sometimes you have that question, right? You don't want to interrupt flow, but you're like, I wonder who put that in there. You can right click and click show info, and then you can actually kind of peek around and probe and see who added what element.
Yeah. So I right click, I click show info, and I can see that Sebastian added this beautiful looking dessert that is making me even more hungry, and probably just gonna go have like a giant bowl of ice cream for breakfast after this. So that's cool. And yeah, so I can see here, yeah, show info. So I can see that Rose added this one. All right, and our final question I'll add in here, kind of bring us all back together, is kind of similar to what we asked the audience, but what does a design critique taste like to you? What flavor would it be? Yeah, so less like bittersweet, definitely. And why is it bittersweet, Celeste?
I mean, it's like sometimes you hear opinions that might feel hard to hear because you already were spending a lot of time and dedication in exploring a solution, but at the same time, you know that it's really healthy and really good to hear those by that time and not later from the user.
Yeah, absolutely. We have juicy, we have another hot pepper in here.
Yeah, in the chat, someone's saying lemon.
Lemon.
Which I love.
Like
We use the metaphor all the time. When you're handed lemons, you make lemonade. So I think that's a wonderful metaphor for the process. The feedback is sometimes tough to palate, but you can do something with it. That's the benefit.
And Flor, tell me a little bit about tea. Why tea? Hot tea.
It's like something you really need to do, like taking a tea, and it's good for you and helps you go further with your design. But sometimes it's like too intense because you spend so much time on what you did, and people suddenly discover something that you didn't think about, and it's like, oh, I had to take this and go on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing and kind of and not only doing this work, but also kind of sharing your mindset around design critiques, because I think it's important to understand where, as a team, we're coming from with the critique. Some of us feel like it's good and helpful. Some of us feel like it's very intense, right? It's something that's a necessary part of our work here at Mural, is to do critiques in our design process. Both to understand things that are great and going well with the design, but also things that need improvement. And as a team, there's really no wrong answer. There's no right or wrong to what you're giving feedback about or what you're saying. It's really what do we feel like our customers and our users are going to need to benefit from building this feature and this solution. So this will be kind of the mindset we're going in with for our critique, and I'll talk through a little bit what.
I was going to ask another question to the crowd briefly. I'll summon you up here. For those of you joining us online, head back over to the menti.com, same code. You should see a new question. And we'll get to the results at the end of our broadcast, but I want you to take a moment and describe the feedback culture you experience at your work. So the scale that we're using here is from, the first kind of high point is that feedback is freely given and received, very healthy culture. The next one is feedback is given when asked. So you have to prompt for it, but it's a mix of positive and negative. Kind of in the middle is feedback is given when asked, and mostly it focuses on the negative side of things. Or feedback is rarely ever given, or it's like pulling. It's impossible to get feedback of any sort out of people. So that question's there. Feel free to answer at your leisure, and we'll come back to those results at the end of the program.
Awesome.
And I'll give it back to you to refresh our memory on the design challenge, and then I'll guide us through.
Sounds good. Thanks, Mark.
You bet.
All right, so I want to make sure I'm just pulling the outline mode here, so it's easy for you guys to follow and see what I'm working on and seeing here. So I'll summon you guys, and I'm going to go to previously on. Kind of a little recap here. So our last session a week ago, we focused on our persona for this topic, who is Sophia, and she's a design lead. She leads a product team, and her goal of doing her work is to synthesize research from a round of recent interviews so that she can make a better decision on what comes into the product and the features, and she can let her design team know what we need to build. And we wanted it, the feature, it's kind of meta, but the feature we were thinking about for our product team to build is search and filter. So how could search and filter capabilities within a canvas help Sophia accomplish this goal of synthesizing all of her research? So let me go back up here to the design challenge. So this is the user scenario that we walked through as a team last week, and you can see that each member of the product team chose an area of this user scenario to prototype. And since then, the team's been really busy working on updating the prototype, creating a higher fidelity version. And we decided to specifically focus the prototype for today on the filtering feature within a canvas. So for Sophia, that means being able to filter content and sticky notes based on different criteria like color, size, maybe who created the sticky note or added the content. And what we want to do is help Sophia think about making connections between different data points and information. And even in user research, a lot of users like Sophia use Mural and color code the material within a canvas. So ultimately, we want to help Sophia do this much faster rather than trying to search through everything one at a time, and start to make those connections to gather insights that she can share with her team. Sebastian, is there anything else missing from that we need to add?
No, I believe we have everything.
Cool. All right. So then I'm going to hand it back to you, Mark, to kind of talk us through this method of a design critique and how it works.
Okay, sounds good. So the way we're going to do a critique is we're going to leverage, to some extent, Rose, Thorn, Bud, which is a method anyone that's kind of dipped their toe in the design thinking waters is familiar with. It's where you use color-coded Post-it notes as you're recording observations, and you pause for a moment and you acknowledge, is this thing, this comment or this observation I'm making something that's positive? Is it like a rose? Is it fully formed? It really resonates. It works well. Then my feedback about this, I would put on a pink or rose-colored. Maybe perhaps there's something that is a point of friction, or it doesn't work, or it falls short, or it's got obvious problems that need to be addressed. That we refer to as a thorn, and use blue-colored notes. And then maybe there's something that has some potential. It's not a fully formed rose. In other words, it doesn't stand on its own as a success, but it's not necessarily a thorn. It's just something that needs a little attention, or maybe it's a non-obvious opportunity, something that if we put a little attention on, gave it a little water, gave it a little food to grow, time to grow, that would become a rose. So we call those buds. We use those green. So rose, thorn, bud, we weave into our critique process here, so that as a design is being presented by the presenter, the designer, whoever is responsible for the work, the people that are participating in the critique are actively listening, and they are recording observations as the presentation happens, and they're capturing them using these color-coded notes. And the reason why this is important is because we're going to ask Sebastian to follow this specific series of inquiries, or this process, these sentences. Here, I'll sum over here. Yeah. So what we're going to start with is stating the problem. So oftentimes, you leap right into your solution, but people aren't really aware of what's the challenge, right? And really, most teams that are at a high functioning level have spent a lot of time getting alignment around problem framing, right? We've already done a couple broadcasts and different sessions on how to ask the right question. So we're really clear on what the problem is. It's really helpful to restate it. So the problem we wanted to solve is person X is trying to accomplish blah. The next thing you say is, one idea we had was, right? You're not saying this is the only idea, this is the best idea, this is the idea I need you to fall in love with. You're just saying one idea we had was. This is kind of in a flavor of statement starters. How might we, right? You're just letting them know, here's one idea, and then you walk through your prototype. So one idea we had was we could do this and whatever you say. You finish that, and then you ask, is anything that I presented not clear? So this is where you're looking for clarifying questions, right? You're not inviting the critique yet. You don't want people to leap right in and say, I hate the color blue. Oh, that was a stupid idea. So what you're trying to clarify is, of the mock-up that I had, is there anything that wasn't clear? And let's take a moment to make sure everyone's clear and aligned on the intent of the prototype. Then we'll move into warm feedback, right? The roses. Now, I'll invite people on the panel. Why do you think we start with positive feedback? Why do you think that's important? Anyone? I know Hailey's my plant, I know. But how long as human beings do we spend celebrating things that go really awesome? Usually very short amount of time, right? How long do we spend dwelling on that thing that happened in 4th grade that I'll never get over, that was so embarrassing, right? We spend our entire life dwelling on the negative aspects of stuff. So in a critique, it's really important that you invite the positive stuff first while it's fresh. Because one thing you don't want to do is change something that works really well, right? So it's really important that you just say, what did you like about this idea? Now, you're going to get some people that are going to volunteer some thorns right away. And it's really important that you facilitate your own critique and you say, thank you for your feedback. Hold on to that idea. We'll get to the negative feedback in a minute. Right now, I really want to make sure that I capture what worked really well about this. So you really want to keep people in that positive and make sure you get all that feedback, because it's easy to flip to the negative, and that'll come like a flood of a torrent of rushing water. You'll have all the negative feedback you can handle, but it's really positive to go back and get any of that positive stuff, right? Once the negative starts, it's hard. So that's why we go in that order. What did you like about the idea? Then you say, what didn't work as well as it could, right? Fighting. And so the people that have participated in the critique have these notes, right? So everyone's got their roses, thorns, and buds all queued up and ready to go. The last question you're going to ask is, what didn't work? I'm sorry, I didn't edit that. The last one is, how might I advance this idea? And that you're asking for the buds, right? What are some ways where we could take this, and in the next sprint or the next round of activity we're going to do based on this feedback, what are some things that we could do to really advance this idea? Thanks for fixing that. Cut and paste laziness. And then, of course, at the end, you want to thank people. Feedback is a huge gift. And when the feedback culture is working at a really good level, there's that mutual appreciation. People are giving their time, they're listening, right? The audience has a job to do, active listening, really embracing the empathy with the person who's going to be experiencing this interface or this process or whatever it is your prototype represents, and they're listening in that and trying to give you the feedback that you need to tune this up and take it to the next level. So you really want to end by thinking. So Sebastian, these questions make sense? Something you think you could follow these as you facilitate your own critique?
Yeah, I think I can.
All right, awesome.
As a second plan, you can help me as well.
Oh, you bet. Absolutely. I'll be listening. I'll prompt, if we miss a step or whatever, I'll jump right in.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, cool. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Sebastian, who I want to make sure we made you a facilitator, right, in the session?
Yeah, I am. I think so, yeah. So,
perfect. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to reveal this information. Okay. So,
and I'll follow you, Sebastian. So
yeah.
Perfect.
I think that you are guys in my screen now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So as Hailey mentioned, we working on the last week on this type of iteration. We start as a doing some sketches and try to iterate and add a value in those scenarios that she mentioned about how we can help Sophia to filter content in order to have all the information she needs. So in this example, in this scenario, Sophia's just finished her session with her team, and so she wants to filter the content that she has recently added, right? So she opens the filter tab right here with the icon on the help bar, and she starts having all the information about related to the content in the canvas. So she can see all the authors or all the colors of the information, and also she will be having all the voting sessions that appears on the canvas as well that she recently had. So she started filtering the content. She started adding some keywords that she recently that with her team she added. She started filtering by color as well. So maybe ideas with sticky notes in yellow or sticky notes in pink. And all these sticky notes and information are being highlighted in the canvas. So the other information has a lower opacity. So the important elements are highlighted for her. Also, she can also start matching and refining the filter so she can match any filter or all the filters that she's using. And as I mentioned, she also will be able to add keywords and remove them as well, right? And of course, she can also apply and filter by many authors or owners of ideas as well.
I want to pause just for a second. I want to make sure that our listeners are able to capture Rose Thorn Bud as we go. So panelists, if as Sebastian is presenting, we have areas over the side. So if you're taking them all by hand, that's fine. Just transfer them into the Rose Thorn Bud area we set up over the side. Great. Sorry to interrupt, Sebastian. I just want to make sure we're capturing feedback as we go.
Yeah, sure. Shall I go over and
no, that's fine. Keep in your flow.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I made a quick GIF so we can try to understand in a better way how this first iteration, I will want to emphasize that this is kind of the first iteration of hi-fi that we are working. So we still need to polish it a little bit more. So here is kind of the interaction I showed before, but in an animated GIF. So Sophia, open the tab bar, the filter tab, to start selecting some of the creators or the author of the ideas. She's refining the filter and adding some keywords to filter the content in the canvas. So as long as she starts filtering, all the information are going to be highlighted, as you can see here. Sorry. So all this information are being highlighted, and with the lower opacity, all the information below is not like useful for her. So she also can be, she can also select all these filtered elements and maybe copy or duplicate and continue the work in another area of the mural. So this is how much we can we move forward for the past week.
All right, sounds good.
Yeah.
So let's see. So the first thing to ask is the third question. Is anything I presented unclear?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll ask it for you.
Yeah.
All right. So clarifying questions, right? Before we jump into our bold opinions on your work, this is an opportunity for us just to make sure that we're aligned, that we understand something maybe that was heard, or oftentimes in a distributed session like this, sometimes audio or video glitches a bit. Someone might have not heard something, repeat something. This is the opportunity just for us to get aligned with the intent of the design. So I'll ask Florencia, Celeste, who's got any clarifying questions? Rose?
I have one.
Go for it.
So my question is about the type of content this filter feature supports inside the canvas.
Yeah, sure. So the idea here is that no matter what type of content, what type of elements has the content, we are going to focus only on the words inside. So it could be sticky note, or it could be an area, or it could be a title. So we are going to focus just filtering the content on it.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
I have another question. Regarding the suggested words, it just words as you type, or you can open it and it shows you some sort of a quick resume of the most popular ideas.
Yeah, good question. So here we have the filter by word, so you can add word as you type them, but also we suggest some words, as maybe I will zoom in here. So here we also suggesting some words that are already in the canvas and has more, there are too many times. So in that case, you can select them and it's going to be below the search bar after that.
Okay, cool.
I have a question too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you mentioned it because I was writing while you were talking, but what does select all does?
Select all, you will be able to select all the filter elements that are visible. So after that, you will be able, if you do that, like to make a copy of those elements, or maybe move them or duplicate and go into a second iteration, or maybe go to a second round with them.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Any other clarifying questions before we move on to the warm feedback? All right, Sebastian, I'll let you ask the next question.
So the one regarding the thorn, right?
No, we're first step is we're going to go positive. So what did you like about this idea?
Yeah, what do you like about this idea? Maybe you can start, Cele or Rose.
Sure.
Okay, I can.
Well, go ahead.
Rose can only give roses, right? So.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So I like that it allows you to find content fast, and that thing you explain about having a quick grasp the most popular ideas or topics that people wrote in the mural. I think that's really cool. And also, I put there the visual overview of the applicable filtering options. You don't have to think too much. You can see them there. So that's really nice. And also how the content of the mural reacts to the filtering. That subdued, sticky notes and highlighted ones. I really like that. So that's it for me.
Wonderful.
Great.
Roses. Thanks, Rose. Who's next? Who's got some positive?
Yes, I want to add on top of that. I think the patterns selected are really visual, so you can see people there and colors. So that makes everything really easy to understand at first sight.
Good. Flor?
I can say something too. I really like the way you solved the highlighting of content. I think that Sophia will be able not to lose the context, but see the highlighted ideas very clearly. And I think that it's really clever and really helpful for Sophia to have like keywords, suggested keywords, and that will be really helpful.
Great.
So
Perfect.
you could imagine doing an affinity cluster, right? So all this feedback, you can see already there's multiple positive feedbacks around a particular idea, and that helps you as a designer understand that your intent is really connecting with people. Whereas something else, maybe one person observed it or something, so maybe there's discoverability or there's some other design pattern that might lend itself to people being able to connect with the value a little bit better. But right away, you could see how the roses and thorns and buds could all be affinitized, and then you could start seeing these patterns emerge from the feedback. We're not going to do that in this session. We're just going to walk through them here, but that's another method to use.
Perfect. So, yeah, I was going to start asking what didn't work.
There you go.
Yeah. So, Rose, you can start. Like, what thing you didn't work as good?
Yes, I wasn't sure about the voting filters because they were a bit confusing. But I don't know, maybe they need a little bit more work or some more explanation. As the interface is looking right now, I wouldn't know exactly how they work. Maybe you have to play around with them a little bit. So that's for the voting filters. And I was also wondering how scalable the solution is. Let's say if you are filtering content from a workshop where you had 50 participants or 100 participants, how would that look, and how can you filter by author or by color if everyone added their own custom colors? So yeah, I'm a bit dubious about that.
Okay. Cele?
Well, I have the same doubt for the slider pattern around voting results. And I was about to add another one, but I can just tell you that maybe the pattern also that we are using for the matching all the criteria, maybe I was wondering if there is a simpler pattern for that, so it looks like it's taking too much real estate in the interface. So that's what more of a question.
Perfect. Flor.
Me. Well, I have the same doubts. The first one about scalability. I mean, if there are a lot of custom colors or people collaborating in the mural, what happens? Can Sophia scroll inside the filter tab? I don't know. That's something that we may discuss. Then I don't see the filter by size. How can Sophia filter by rounded stickies or square stickies? And the other thing is that maybe the slider pattern for filtering the votings is kind of weird because you don't have one and a half vote. You have or one vote or two votes. I mean, it's not like the volume or of the music. Maybe that can be, I don't know, other pattern to do that better. The same with the drop down. We have a 2 option drop down that maybe can be better solved with a switch. Even though it's a question that we have to solve. It's not like something that is wrong. It's something that we have to check if it can be better solved.
Yeah.
That's all.
Perfect.
Great.
Good.
I'm going to pause just for a second, and I'm going to remind people viewing that if you have questions about anything in the session, I want to give you a little bit of a heads up. So we'll have a QA session at the end. So feel free to use the Q&A panel and ask those questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Cool. Thanks. Back to you, Sebastian.
Perfect. So the last one, right? So how might I advance these ideas?
Let's go in a different order this time. Let's start with Florencia.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I was muted. Opportunities to make it better. I think that one thing we can do then is like sketch again some part of this and see if it works better, like the thing with the drop down, the filter to the votes. I also wonder if there can be a way to zoom in the results and navigate the result one by one. That was the last item, so I didn't write a lot here.
Okay, don't worry.
That's okay. I'm jumping in and doing it right now, Flor. So you're good.
What?
I'm jumping in and typing that stuff in right now as I'm hearing it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's another best practice, since it's sometimes we forget it's a shared collaboration experience, and sometimes, if you're like me, I can verbalize or I can type, but it's sometimes hard to verbalize and type. But someone can just drop in as a note taker. Sometimes we assign roles in a session and assign a note taker role, and people think of that as someone who's like a scribe or someone who's like a stenographer in a legal court. It's really just someone who's there keeping an eye and making sure is all the feedback, is all the commentary being captured. Sometimes you'll notice the conversation's flowing along, and then all of a sudden, there are a bunch of people in the room having this sidetrack discussion, and it sometimes it just happens and then it disappears. But it was around a topic that was important. A note taker, a dedicated note taker in a meeting, can start capturing the comments and the question and when it came up in the flow of the meeting. And that having that record is sometimes very important, because that topic, usually if just discussed, doesn't get resolved and comes up over and over again. And each time it's like a new thing that is rediscovered, as opposed to having a record and saying, we really need to probably have a side conversation. Who can take lead on actually getting this resolved? But it's that note taker role has a pretty vital role in remote and distributed facilitation sessions like this. So thanks, Hailey.
Yeah. All right, who's next? Maybe Celeste, would you like to add?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I also really like the idea of suggesting words to our user, because this can be really valuable. So I was wondering if we can make this interaction more important in the interface. So that's one thought. Another one is around what happens after filtering, and what other actions, relevant actions for Sophia to do after she had this set of content that she wants to, I don't know, maybe share, synthesize, create a new document. So it's an open question also. Maybe we can explore more relevant actions to do after the filtering with that content.
Yeah, sure.
And the last one, I guess Rose already shared it was around scalability, and for those canvases that have a lot of users, a lot of colors, etc. So that's more on the solution itself.
Yeah, good. Rose.
Yes, I would keep refining the prototype and focusing on the voting and filtering. The filtering of votes and suggested words, because those are really interesting, and it would be nice if those are clearly shown to the user. And also scalability. We always test how a solution looks like when you have very few items and a lot of them. So in this case, I think this other end, when you have a lot of content, how does it work? How the interface reflects that? So I would check that.
Perfect. Good. We have a lot of ideas to keep working.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's see. So what's next?
The last.
First of all, I want to thank you for all this information. I mean, this is great. Even that we're in the same team, this is kind of the real work as we are doing. So we are. I'm thank you for all the feedback. So I will keep working.
Wonderful. Yeah. The thanks part is really adds closure. It's subtle, but it lets everyone know, first of all, that you have what you need, and we can kind of get out of that mode of giving feedback, and then and kind of move on to the next topic as well.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. So we're coming up really close to the end of our show, so I wanted to make sure that we get feedback and we hear from the audience. So, this whole program has been about feedback, and feedback for what we're doing here with MURAL Backstage Pass is also critical. So for those of you listening, if you could locate the chat window and give us two things. First, give us a number from 1 to 10. How likely are you to recommend, or how satisfied are you with the session? 1 being total waste of time, and 10 being this was something I see value of, or I know some other people get value out of doing this. And just why? Why was this, or why wasn't this something that you'd want to do again. So I'll cue that up, and while you're answering that in the chat panel, I'll reflect the feedback. So the good news is that really things from those who answered are skewing really positive. This is an indication of some healthy critique cultures out there. So ideally, you want feedback freely given and received. It's a two-way street, right? You have to be specific about where you want feedback, and people have to, have a certain level of skill at understanding how to give feedback as well, and that positive feedback is useful, but too much positive feedback can lead to situations where designs go out that aren't thoroughly vetted. Too much negative feedback can kill an idea that actually has some potential. It's just, maybe the sense is that there isn't anything worth saving here, and that may not be the case. But it's important to get the balance. And the buds, I wouldn't overlook them, because the reason why collaboration and working together is the future of work. You get diversity, you get lots of different viewpoints, and I often encourage design teams as well to bring in people and bring in voices outside of just design. In my background, I managed a team at Autodesk, and when I had a tough lesson when I had this vibrant discussion within the design group. We had our critique, we prioritized our work, and it all looked great. We were all in alignment. And then we brought in developers and product managers, and the whole thing blew up. We found out that's not practical. That doesn't align with the other strategic work going on in the company, right? So getting diversity in these critique sessions is really important. And the ideas that you ask for when you're looking for those buds, the ideas and insights are really wonderful things. They're these little gifts that as a designer you can take back and be thinking about them while you're getting your coffee and eating your delicious cookies, and thinking about how might I actually incorporate that feedback, something you wouldn't have thought of on your own. All right, so let's go to some of our questions. We have let's see. So we have a couple that came through various channels. I was personally, I was curious myself around what design tools do you use at Mural? How are you prototyping or sharing ideas?
Okay, so we're using Sketch and Principle. Principle for motions and micro interactions, and Sketch for the most basic and advanced design tool, right? So when we finish some designs in Sketch, we move forward with Principle and do some kind of motions and interaction, so we can show that value for the.
Interesting. I'm not familiar at all with that second tool. Is it Principle?
Yeah, Principle app.
Got it.
Just for Mac. Sorry.
Oh, I see.
And also Mural, of course, for gathering feedback and opinions.
Yeah, I was about to add that those are the main tools for high fidelity prototypes, but we have this idea or philosophy that we just use the tool that best helps us answer a question. A prototype is a question, so we are free to choose tools all the time and question about what's the best tool for the job.
That's wonderful. Are there any kind of unique or unusual tools sometimes that you find just solves a problem? You don't use it all the time, but sometimes you're like, wow, we go to this thing.
I don't know, maybe role playing, for example.
Oh, right, sure. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes it's a dialogue that we need to test, and we don't even need to visualize it. So we do some role playing. Or I don't know, Sebas and Flor are using different tools for the Microsoft Big Hub screen, because it's a different ecosystem. So they are trying Marvel, Vision, whatever works in that ecosystem.
That's right. Well,
Yeah, for our initial brainstorming session, pen and paper.
I was gonna say, I love you guys still go back to pen and paper when you need to, and then subs I've seen even our last session you used an iPad to sketch right into Mural.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate not to hammer and pitch Mural too hard, but I love it's a blank canvas, right? So all of these things, no matter where they might exist, you have this one area where you can throw all these different types of data, Excel spreadsheet data, things into one community and have that alignment across a bunch of different types of artifacts, as opposed to everyone having logins to a bunch of different types of accounts. And I really appreciate you calling on things like role playing, right? There are all sorts of questions. When you find out what is the question we actually need to answer, sometimes it's not a technological question. I think about what the marketing team was doing with Drift and trying to get these chat bots not to sound so robotic and actually be helpful. So it was modeling and just using, role playing to try and understand what wording is really hitting the mark, is creating flow and getting people to the right conversation, as opposed to what seems a little obtrusive or a little obnoxious and off-putting, And so, we can't forget the stuff we learned in kindergarten and grade school, right? Show and tell and role playing and all these things are often the right tool for the job. So.
Right. And Mark, I know I realize we're at the top of the hour, so I wanted to make sure we can stay on and answer questions, but I wanted to let the audience know that we are having these sessions with different topics every week. And we want to invite you guys to join us for future sessions and even submit and suggest potential topics. So I put the link to our registration page for all of our upcoming sessions into the chat, and you can feel free to join us there. But yeah, any additional questions, we can of course stay on and happy to answer, and you can type them in the chat as well.
That's great. Well, I know design team, you've got lots of real work to continue doing. So thank you so much for joining us. We're so thrilled to be able to kind of follow along and expose your work and your process and make it available to our customers. So thank you very much. If you got a bail, we understand. Hailey and I will hang out if there are any other questions. Oh, let's see. We do have one question. Let's see. Does it gather statistics of the content displayed? If so, how can we see them? I think it would be useful as a way of summarizing. I'm assuming this is a question about the prototype and not about Mentimeter. So the question again, is it accumulating the statistics of the content displayed? So, do you have any high-level summary when the results are posted, so that you get a sense of kind of a summary of an aggregate across the results?
I mean, not right now. I mean, sorry. We just focused on this stage for trying to manipulate at least the content, maybe copy and just move it or duplicate, but not kind of statistics. I mean, if this is applying for the filter and search prototype, this question, we are not doing that for by now, but it's on our radar for later.
Wonderful.
And we had another question as well. So how often, team, do you guys do design critiques like this?
I can answer if you want.
Sure.
Every time somebody needs feedback and it's something too complex to just have asynchronic feedback in Mural, we tend to make at least a small design critique between some designers, and it's really helpful for the design process. So the answer will be like every time it is needed, we do one. I don't know if Celeste agrees with me, but I think she does.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, of course. And one thing to add is that it's like one step that we do in every design issue. So we know that at some point in the process, we need to gather feedback, not only from designers, but also from product managers, developers. So we make sure that we are not like, we need to anticipate to risks so that like we don't have surprises in the development phase, for example, or later on.
Yeah, I was going to add that we try to make sure that the key stakeholders that we need to invite to the session are there, so we have that input.
I'm curious, do you ever get a really interesting idea from an unexpected source, like something that like really is like, wow, that would be great to implement, and it comes from someone you never anticipated?
Yes, it happens pretty frequently. We have a lot of open channels, not only the formal meetings for design critiques, but also Slack. We are sharing the murals over Slack. So like anybody can jump in and make a strong opinion on. So yes, the answer would be yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, you remind me, that's something I really take for granted. Being part of Mural is the ability to have an opinion and be invited to share an opinion on a variety of things. You know, so some conversations are off in a corner and intentionally kind of incubating for a while until they're ready to get feedback. But really, more times than not, people are just inviting feedback. Someone just take a look at this. Give me and someone someone shared this with me. They said feedback is like a wedding gift. You know, you may not like it, but you always have to say thank you. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to take action on someone's feedback, but keeping those channels open is just positive all the way around. You know, being in many former companies where you have all these ideas and you never have an opportunity to even share them or get them off your chest, or just like, I just want you to hear that from this perspective, this thing is really important. And to have someone say, okay, we hear you, we're aware of it, is so nice. And many times, you know, teams are just, they run their own show and they don't want anyone else to interfere with what they're doing. And oftentimes the product is not as good as if everyone who's passionate about it, successful, gets at least a voice in being able to share.
Well, I don't necessarily see any other questions coming through the chat or anything like that. So why don't we, yeah, we can wrap up for the day. Thank you guys from the product team for staying on and providing some insight into how you guys work and what collaboration looks like for developing products and features and stuff in Mural. Really, really appreciate it. And also huge thanks to Augustine and Jenna for manning the chat and helping us out here. It's always appreciated as well. And to you guys who join us on Backstage Pass and who have stayed beyond just to kind of learn how we work as well, because I think that speaks to just how much our customers, how much we love our customers, but also how much you guys are committed to continuing to learn and make remote collaboration at your workspace better. So yeah, anything else to add, Mark? Or
No, that's it. Yeah, thanks. Another session down. I look forward to seeing what we're gonna have a first row seat at discovering next week. So
likewise.
all right, thanks, everyone. Have a fantastic weekend.